And welcome back to America Talks Live. I'm your host, Miranda. All right, let's take a look at some of the other big stories that are making headlines on this Wednesday. French officials say they've arrested the man that they believe drove his car into a group of soldiers this morning. The alleged suspect was injured during a shootout with police. Officials say at least 6 of the soldiers were injured in the attack from earlier today. And today marks the 3-year anniversary of Michael Brown's death. Several community events are scheduled in honor of Brown. Violence and protest erupted all around the country after a grand jury ruled not to indict Ferguson, Missouri police officer Darren Wilson for the shooting death of Brown. Golf legend Tiger Woods pleads not guilty to a DUI charge from 3 months ago, but he will plead guilty to reckless driving as part of a plea deal. Woods will also enter a program for DUI offenders. Now, he was arrested back in May after Florida police found him passed out behind the wheel of his car. This is dash cam video of that. Woods told officers that he was taking a prescription pain medication, and tests showed that he had no alcohol in his system. The California Department of Corrections releases this mugshot of Phil Spector's. It shows a 76-year-old music producer known for hits like You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling. Now free of his notorious big hair, Spector is serving a 19-year life prison sentence after killing actress Lena Clarkson 8 years ago. All right, now that you're all up to date, let's bring in our guest for the second half of the show. Today, we are pleased to have Larry Klayman, the founder of Freedom Watch and a former federal prosecutor. As always, Miranda. Good to have you.
Always.
So we talked earlier in the show with our political panel about North Korea. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says that he doesn't think that there is an immediate threat. This despite the war of words recently between President Trump and the isolated nation, and that American people should sleep well at night because of how the president is handling North Korea's threats. Larry, how are you sleeping these days?
I'm sleeping fine, but not because of that.
Okay.
The reality is that this now shows, we talk about leaks in the last few weeks. This was a leak to the Washington Post, and it shows that the Obama administration withheld information from the American people that Korea could create miniature nuclear weapons to put on top of intercontinental ballistic missiles because they didn't want to have to do anything. And on the other side of the fence, you have John McCain, head of the Armed Services Committee, who also withheld this information. So it really destroys the confidence in our government that they have lied to us about this for many years, and North Korea is on the verge of being able to attack us, if not already. So I'm not afraid. I lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, I know what it's about, but there are a lot of people in this country that are, frankly, in a panic mode. And you could see that on some of the networks this morning.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think, because Tillerson has said that the president's remarks, which he faced a lot of criticism from, including John McCain, who you mentioned, a lot of people have said that the president is escalating the situation, but Tillerson argues otherwise and says that this actually shows that the U.S. has a strong strategy against North Korea. Do you have full confidence in the president's strategy when it comes to North Korea?
I don't. I'll tell you, there's an old adage, when you get up on the dance floor, either you dance or you sit down. Either you're prepared to wage a preemptive attack against North Korea and take out their military establishment and their political establishment, or you shouldn't talk and threaten, because the threatening is creating more need by North Korea, as they see it, to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles with miniaturized nuclear warheads. It's counterproductive, it's not smart, and frankly, it's stupid, and it should not have been said. And going forward, it's okay for Tillerson to cover for the president. I like the president, and I'm supportive of him. But this was a mistake on his part. They should stop the threats. If you're going to do it, go ahead and do it. But don't threaten, because that causes North Korea to react. And now they're threatening to, bomb Guam. There's 200,000 American servicemen and others on Guam. And perhaps something worse could happen as well.
Let's hope that's not the case, for sure. All right, let's talk about the latest in the Russian probe. Paul Manafort's lawyer has now confirmed that the Washington Post's report that the FBI raided Trump's former campaign manager's home last month in connection with alleged Russian meddling in the election. The Post claims that the FBI was working on behalf of Special Counsel Robert Mueller and that it seized documents and other materials. But it also claims that investigators may have been worried that Manafort would not turn over all the records in response to a grand jury subpoena. But People familiar with the search told the Post most of the seized materials had already been given to Congress. So let me ask you, what does this latest report, based on your legal experience, what does this latest report suggest to you?
Well, I am a criminal defense lawyer in part, Miranda, you know, and I was a prosecutor at the Justice Department as well. It doesn't bode well. And it fits in with another story that President Trump should not be making nicey nice with special counsel Bob Mueller. Bob Mueller is out to get him. He's out to get his family. He's out to get his associates. Now, Paul Manafort was the campaign chairman for a while. Paul Manafort is the former partner of Roger Stone, Black, Manafort, Stone, and Kelly consulting group for many years. They're playing hardball. And I think what Mueller's trying to do is to flip Manafort. In other words, work him into a corner, get whatever he can against him, have him turn state's evidence, reach a plea agreement, and testify. And if I was Roger Stone, I'd be very concerned too. There must have been a lot of communications between the two of them because the two of them are very close. And of course, they're looking for communications with regard to Trump. Now, I don't think Trump did anything wrong, and I doubt that anyone else did either. But prosecutors can find whatever they want. If the government wants to be out to get you, Miranda, they can find something. Believe me, with an empire as big as Mr. Trump's from before, they'll find something, and Mueller will use that to squeeze. So it's really bad news, and it's why the president should not be sending messages, even through his lawyer, telling Mueller that he likes his job. It also demoralizes people who are supporting him, that are trying to get rid of Mueller. When you find out the president is sending, messages through his lawyer saying you're doing a great job. I mean, what is it?
Right, and I don't want to go to that report that you're referring to. USA Today, in case you haven't seen it, those of you watching, reports that the president has sent private messages through his lawyer. That's what Larry's referring to special counsel Robert Mueller. Now, according to the report, Trump's lawyer wanted him to share with Mueller how good of a job he's doing. Kind of has a lot of people confused. So, Larry, I know you said it's not a good idea, but so why would the president, who, as you know, has called this investigation the greatest witch hunt in political history, reach out to Mueller? And if you were his attorney, would you be advising him to do that?
Well, I wonder what attorneys he has that apparently is forwarding these messages. I think he may need new attorneys, frankly. I mean, it's ridiculous. Either you're in there in the fight and you're playing hardball, and with Mueller, you should. He has a conflict of interest. As I've said on this show before, Mueller was engaged in illegal surveillance against the American people when he was FBI director. The guy is dirty. He has committed crimes, in my opinion, and we're pursuing that in some cases that we have at Freedom Watch, at freedomwatchusa.org. You can find that. But you can't have it both ways. And if you want people to go out there and, like myself, and I'm not taking direction from the president or anybody else, but if we're out there fighting to get rid of this guy and you're sending messages that he's doing a great job and you appreciate him, I mean, what's going on? This is theater of the absurd.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to, that's why I'm asking you, why would he do it then?
Well, I think in Washington there is a tendency, as there is throughout the country and the world, to just try to cozy up to people and hope that they like you. But in Washington, the only person that will like you is your dog. There's an old expression, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. They're out to get the president, and you can't be sending those mixed messages. It makes you look weak as well. It's the same thing he's doing with North Korea. You can't say that he'd be honored to meet Kim Jong-un and at the same time talk about fury and fire to wipe the guy out. I mean, let's get a consistent message here. I like the president. I'm supportive of him personally, but this is not the way to communicate. It's really a bad idea.
Well, as you know, there have been a lot of comparisons in the media between the Russian Collusion Probe and the Watergate affair, and that scandal led to President Richard Nixon's resignation exactly, for all of you history buffs that are keeping track, exactly 43 years ago today. So former Congressman J.D. Hayworth argues that there is a double standard over the wrongdoings of Republican administrations versus Democratic ones, and he asked presidential historian Craig Shirley about that earlier today on his show.
Crimes of the Kennedy administration, of the Johnson administration, were swept under the rug. But Nixon, earned a particular ire. They tried to get Reagan on Iran-Contra. Their ire was aimed at George Bush 43. And now, in particular, Donald Trump, because they genuinely hate this man. They're going to do anything and everything they can. He brings out the worst in the left, just as Nixon did.
Do you think there is a difference, Larry, between Republican administrations versus Democratic ones?
Well, there is, because the deep state in Washington is 90% Democrat. Even in my former alma mater, the Justice Department, as Newt Gingrich talked about a few weeks back, 97% of the attorneys either donated to Hillary Clinton or voted for her. And that is the deep state. And the reality is the people in and around Special Counsel Mueller are Democrats. A lot of them donated to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. They would like to see the president legally dead, destroyed. And that is the difference. But there's also an aspect here with regard to Watergate. President Nixon was never indicted. Okay, he resigned. And it never got to that point. So we don't know if that actually would have happened or not. There are many legal scholars that say you can't indict the president of the United States. But I think what Mueller is out for here is to destroy the people in and around Trump. In the end, Trump will not be indicted. There's like an unwritten rule in our country, unfortunately. It doesn't exist in Israel, Brazil, even South Korea, where they go after presidents. But here, if you're president, you're above the law. What they're going to do is try to destroy his presidency, have his policies grind to a halt, harm his family. I would predict that people in and around the president, whether it's Manafort or Roger Stone or former General Kelly, retired, and others, they're in real jeopardy right now because there's going to be so much money spent. 16 lawyers already. You can imagine what their salaries are. They didn't take a job just for a few months. They took a job, for probably several years. And in the end, Mueller's going to have to justify spending somewhere between $50 and $100 million on this investigation, and he's going to indict somebody. And it's going to be people at the medium and lower level. But as I said, Miranda, there's kind of an unwritten rule in Washington. I've lived it for a long time. I've been a lawyer, for decades, is that the higher ups, they protect each other. But the people at the middle and lower level, they're the scalps that they get. And those are the people that are in harm's way in a bigger way, other than just the policies of this president, which are being ground to a halt.
Well, speaking of indictments, let's talk a little bit about a new revelation in the Hillary Clinton email scandal. I spoke with best-selling author Ed Klein. He was on the show yesterday, and he claims that the Justice Department is considering reopening the investigation into Clinton's email server. Here's what he told us.
It was based on my reporting with a longtime Clinton legal advisor who had a conversation late last month with a high-ranking official at the Department of Justice who called the legal advisor, Clinton's legal advisor, and said, we here at the Justice Department are seriously re-examining, opening our case against Hillary for mishandling classified information on her email server when she was Secretary of State. And would she be amenable to considering taking a plea bargain under which she would sign an agreement admitting that she did wrongdoing, and in return, we would not prosecute her? The chances of her accepting such an offer are practically zero.
Larry, let me ask you, do you think the Justice Department is considering on going after Hillary Clinton, and what's the likelihood that she would ever agree to a plea deal?
Well, I'll answer it in reverse order.
Okay.
Klein is right, nil, because she still wants to run for the president again. She lives in a delusional state where she thinks she's going to make a grand return to the national presidential scene. So the answer is no. But with regard to the way this works in practice is that if Attorney General Jeff Sessions had his staff open an investigation into Hillary Clinton, all heck would break loose. And they would claim this was just simply retaliatory. It'll never happen. Sessions doesn't have the guts. We've already seen that up to this point in time. He's kind of a mouse. I like the guy personally, but he doesn't have the courage to do that. He can do stuff on immigration, but not with the Clintons. It's too powerful. But what I do believe could happen, potentially, is an independent counsel, or special counsel, as we now call them, could be appointed and give it to somebody else, because I think it would be a hot potato for Sessions and for Rod Rosenstein, who, frankly, this was Sessions' big mistake. Put this Democrat, former U.S. at Maryland under Obama as number 2 is an absolute disaster. So I think they may just simply shuffle it off to an independent counsel at best. But frankly, I doubt that's going to happen because the Clintons have always been a protected species in Washington. And frankly, they're nasty people. They're mean, and they retaliate. And Washington is afraid of them, all of them. Believe me, I've lived it for many, many years with the Clintons. I'm not afraid of them, but the politicians and others are. You remember Filegate? All this information from the FBI went over to Hillary Clinton in the White House. 900 people, I represented some of those victims to smear them. So I don't think anything's going to happen, frankly. That's my feeling.
Larry Klayman, as always, we appreciate your time here on the show.
Thank you.
As tensions with North Korea continue to rise, U.S. officials acknowledge our relationship with Russia is at its lowest point. Meanwhile, an Iranian drone forced an American jet to take evasive action yesterday while the pilot was trying to land on an aircraft carrier.